On this video, we're talking about really the group discussion and how do we know how to ask a good question? How do we get discussion flowing? Because a big part of the group is that we don't just want to have a question and then an answer comes and we move on to the next question. That can lead to this kind of repetitive and more boring tone of a group. So we want to have questions that are going to have multiple people answer and are going to get people thinking and really responding and that kind of get the group discussion going so that you as a leader are not, just putting all your input in, but are actually, having the group come to life. A big part to realize is that a lot of the studies that you do, whether it be Bible study books or right now media session, they're going to have study guides with them. And a lot of them have questions, and to be honest, if we're just talking real, a lot of the questions are not that great often. Some of them can be really good, but some of them can be really poor. So you want to be able to recognize a poor question from a good question. And the biggest part of that, honestly, is you want to have questions that are going to connect the source material to people's lives and get them thinking about how it can change or impact something in their life. So the important part is, if you have a question, it's not just a one-word answer. It's not what we call a closed question, which means you can answer it with one word and then move on. You want an open-ended question that's going to get someone thinking, and also thinking about what is God telling them to do, or what is God leading them to do because of that. An example that we had in one of my studies was, what is God's grace and what is His grace? And the good open-ended question to that is, after each person has kind of defined grace or talked about grace a little, is what does that mean to our life? What does it mean that God has given us His grace? How does that give us the freedom to live boldly, to know that whatever happens to us, we have this eternal destination? And those are the kind of questions that get people thinking, and they're going to have more than one answer to, because questions that have more than one answer are key, because they can go to each different person and then they kind of feed off of each other. So that's an important part of doing that. One of the things is sometimes the best way for you to think of a question that is good is to ask yourself that question. In other words, one of the things that I'll do is the list of questions that may be given to you in the study guide is I'll read through them and say, okay, that question really is probably not that great, or how can I make that question better? And that goes back to what we talked about earlier. One thing as a leader that you really need to be prepared is if no one answers that question. In other words, if you ask that question and the room goes dry, are you prepared to answer that question yourself in a meaningful way? And one of the things that can open up a group more than anything else is if you're ready to answer the question honestly in a way that is going to bring people to where they want to share. So sometimes I share struggles that I have, and sometimes I share things that I deal with or a lack of faith that I may have, that'll get people realizing, hey, he's human too, and then they're more likely to open up their own story. So be prepared to answer your own questions in case the room does go dry. Be prepared to have follow-up questions. If there's something that you want someone to expound on, it's okay to say, that's really great. What do you mean by that? What are some ways that can happen? So those are just some ways that you can really ask good questions and get a good group discussion going.